to look totally adulty. We only really shoot for, it's like the Zoom effect, right? Like,
Yeah.
I could come in pajamas, like, for all I cared.
I think that should be a plan one day.
Yeah. Like, I'm all about the comfort.
Yeah.
Professional, not.
We're going to dress like a mullet.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, business on the top, party on the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, or
You look very comfortable today, though.
it is comfortable. They're fleece lined.
Oh, so they're warm.
Yes, they are. But then, I mean, with any like female outfit, we have to add something totally uncomfortable and unpractical with the heels.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how we roll.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And the choice to wear a bodysuit was probably not a good one because now I'm going to be like, okay, am I slouching? Like, do I have the belly roll, the bra roll? I'm like, whatever. I don't care.
You look fine. Black is forgiving on camera.
I mean, I'll say something at some point that, you know, will be less forgiving than my outfit anyway. So I'm like,
Yeah. We're back.
And we survived our families and Christmas. How was Birthankmas?
Birthankmas was good. It was relaxing. It's shorter than it used to be. So we used to do like a long weekend, and now we kind of, because of kids are in school, like it's shorter now. But honestly, it was nicer, I think, all the way around because we did Friday. We showed up, and that was the Thanksgiving part. So Will's mom cooked all day, and so it was just like got there and eat pretty much. And then the next day is like where me and the sister-in-laws, we just bring all the food and we just kind of hung out. So, and the kids ran around crazy, and it was fun. We played bingo.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, I don't think I've ever truly played bingo in my life, like real bingo.
Was it for like money or like?
Yeah, no, we played for money.
Yeah.
And it was fun. Like, it was actually kind of fun. And we had a good time. I didn't realize that my sister-in-law was so, like, ruthless when it came to bingo. Apparently, that's, like, a thing in her family. So I did not know that.
Now you know. Now you know probably not to play bunco with her either because you'll lose a hand.
Oh, I probably will never play that with her. No, probably not. But I was going to introduce her to Spit. That's a card game my sister and I used to play.
What? And it's called Spit.
I don't know why it's called Spit. There is no spitting involved, but it's a fast-paced card game. So be interesting to see how competitive she is with that.
Oh goodness, I'm just happy, honestly, that the holidays are over. It's just a lot. Like I still don't really know what day it is. I went to write a check this morning, and I have to look at my phone. I don't know what the date is. I'm like, all my days now have blurred together.
Well, that's the beauty of kids being out of school too. It's like we function by.
Yeah, but our business doesn't really allow
not
that.
Forgiving.
No, not at all. So I'm like finally starting, hopefully next week when they go back to school, I'll figure out my life again. But right now it's not there. And like I was telling you earlier, my big aha from Christmas was figuring out that I'm old. And that now just standing all day makes me sore. I had like a 2-day hangover. Like my body felt like I got hit by a truck just because I stood all day cooking and, you know, entertaining on Christmas. It's terrible. I'm like, this is just ridiculous. It's like you turn 40 and it's like a big slap in the face. Like, hey, your hair is going to have a completely different texture now. Surprise. Your body is going to hold on to weight in weird places. And you're not going to be able to do anything without being sore. Yeah. Like, oh, you sneezed? Yeah, your back's thrown out for a week. It's like, great. This is my life. Awesome.
Did you have a bunch of family over for Christmas?
We did. We had a ton of family. So my dad lives in Louisiana currently, and he just went through divorce. So he came to our house this year for Christmas, which has never, ever happened before. So it was really his first time seeing Clint's huge Italian side of the family. And
I know from experience, Italians are loud.
Very loud, and then in a confined space. And they're very loud, but a lot of them are just very big in personality and size and, you know, everything. So it was just a lot, but he had a great time. So I was happy that, you know, his first Christmas since the divorce was not like this depressing event. I mean, we kept it pretty lively, and so it was good. I'm still very happy it's over though.
Yeah. I mean, so it's probably the first year that Everett really got what Christmas is because he's a February baby, so he turns 4 in February. So this is probably the first Christmas that he like gets it, like
Mhm.
understands Santa and all that stuff. So I always knew that Christmas was exhausting. Like I was good this year. Like I wrapped my gifts ahead of time. I was really good. And so, because the year before, I was up until like 2 putting like wrapping and putting stuff under the tree. And I was like, I'm not doing that again. And so I went to bed at a reasonable hour, but the amount of exhaustion with kids like rapid fire opening gifts, and it's like, open this, open that, build that. And I have boys. So nothing is just like open it and
Mhm.
play with it. Everything has like batteries or like required extra
Yeah, you
assembly.
need, like, wire cutters just to get it out of the
Yes.
package.
Yeah. Frustration free packaging is a
Yeah.
lie. And so it was just like a day of just building and just 10-second Tom, like wanting to do everything. And if I thought that was bad, I think the day after Christmas is even worse because it's the things that you didn't get to build and they wake up early remembering that you didn't build that. So then they come in and they immediately want you to build that. And it's like you haven't even been able to like pee yet. And so I
Yeah.
spent
No.
most of the next day building the remainder of the big things and just being like pulled in 1,000 different directions by the two of them. And then yesterday they were really, really good. But I think it's just that it's like such an adrenaline rush for them. And it's just so exhausting for a parent. And it's like, I appreciate my parents way more after
Mhm.
dealing with like little ones after Christmas. I mean,
See,
it's
and I'm
fun,
just
but
happy because this year was the first year that, it's very obvious that neither of my kids believe in Santa. So I didn't
right.
even have to put on the charade.
Right.
And it's just so much easier because now, and of course, I have girls. So you give them their, different perfumes and body stuff and clothes and, whatever they ask for. And then they disappear
Yeah.
back to their rooms
They're
for like
good.
6 hours until food's ready. Like they had zero use for me that morning. We didn't even wake up till like 9. So it was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the kind of Christmas I can do where I
Yeah.
can still sleep.
Yep.
I don't have to pretend, and that stupid elf on a shelf thing is not an ordeal in my house.
Yeah.
Like I'm good. I'm good with this stage.
Yeah, I'm a big cheater when it comes to Elf on the Shelf. I buy a box every year, and there's some wonderful people on Etsy that make them. There's multiple people, but they give you
All the
all the
settings
things.
and
Oh, it's perfect. Like
oh my
there's
god.
instructions. Like so, it's like day one. This is how you set it up. They send a picture of how it's supposed to look when it's set up. I'm like, I can do this. I can hang. Like
Mhm.
I'm not creative enough. It would just literally move from like one side of the room to the other if I had the responsibility
Yeah.
of doing it.
No. I don't want to do any of it. I thought the whole concept of the elf was stupid. And I don't know. It's just not a me thing. Like
No.
anybody that knows my personality knows that I'm just not the one
Yeah.
for that. I'm not going to get excited like
Oh, no, I don't get excited, but it is something that's like, it's like they hear about it, someone else had an elf,
mhm.
and then it's like, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah, not for me. So do you have a New Year's resolution? It's coming up this weekend.
I honestly don't. And I think my New Year's resolution is to not have a resolution because I inevitably will never follow through whatever that resolution was. And it's because I'll forget about it. Like it's usually something stupid, like, like everybody. It's like, I'm gonna eat healthier and I'm gonna lose
Oh yeah,
weight.
I don't even attempt that. We live in South Texas. Eating healthy is just not going to happen.
No.
I mean, with enchiladas and like chicken fried steak and I
Guacamole.
am drawn to all the carbs. So, it's just not going to happen. I instead have decided I'm going to do a quarterly resolution. So, like my first quarter is we run KV Core at the office.
Mhm.
So, my first quarter is to get everybody on it and get everybody up to speed on what it does. And I know already that's like wishful thinking that everybody is just going to like snap in line with my resolution. But if I can hit like 50% using it, I think I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And then my other one, like I was telling you earlier, is my inboxes and like kind of creating less mental clutter,
Yeah.
like getting rid of mental clutter from my inboxes, my texts, just people. Like there's
Yeah.
some people that just did not make it to 2023. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, they probably don't know yet, but they'll figure it out. Like the responses just aren't going to be happening in
Yeah.
2023 with some people. Like I've kind of hit a wall where I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I'm done giving time and energy and air,
Yeah.
like, to people who just won't ever change.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
that's
I if I had to say a resolution, mine not that we have an extraordinary amount of debt. Will and I are really good with our money, but um I would say for us, you know, your kids go to private school, so it's like we
mhm.
are trying to put aside money like not waiting as long as we did to put money aside. So I would say for us it's just changing our money management
Mhm.
differently. Because we also have, summer care, and Will and I are trying to figure out like, do we want to do a private nanny or do we want to send them somewhere? And I think the problem with private nanny is that they don't get the socialization that they do
Right.
at daycare. So like I feel like my kids will get bored and then they'll just be behaviorally nightmares.
Could you do,
Um,
like, a hybrid? Like a do they have, like, a 3-day-a-week
Not
option?
really. But it's like a whole nother tuition payment. Like to
Mhm.
send them to summer care is like 6 or 7 grand for the summer. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So,
But just think, I mean, at this point, the way you save to pay for tuition, you're already gonna be used to it if they go to college.
yeah.
Like, I feel like I'll just be paying tuitions of some sort for the next, like, bajillion years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just
I mean, I do want to start contributing more to their college savings plan. Like I feel like that would
mhm.
be that is something that I want to start really thinking about doing more of, but I wouldn't say it's a resolution. It's just more like we're just thinking about changing the way that we're managing the money that we have. I mean, we have very little debt. So,
Mhm.
like don't have credit card debt. It's just cars in the house, but it's just managing
Yeah.
that. I mean, I want to pay the cars
Well,
off.
reprioritizing where money goes.
Right.
I think my biggest not guilty pleasure at all because, I mean, it's a necessary thing, but my biggest expense if I was trying to rein something in would be grocery bill.
Yeah.
Like, it is insane how much money I spend
Yes.
at the grocery store, and
Yes.
I know that the last 2 months are kind of an outlier just because we entertain big at the holidays, so that 5 to $600 in groceries that week is different, but for a family of 4, I should not be spending, like, 1,200 a month in groceries.
Yeah. Our grocery bill is really big too.
It's not like we eat caviar and, like, steak for every meal. It's
No.
crazy.
No, but I mean, the amount of snacks, like,
Oh, yeah.
and it's not like buy a bunch of unhealthy. Like, we don't really. I mean, I got chips for the kids for break, but like, I never have chips in the house. Like, they have crackers, but like, there's not stuff like that. But it's just like
Mhm.
the amount of snacks kids eat, and honestly, kids eat smarter than adults. Like, we eat 3 meals a day, but it's better generally. I mean, generally, that's what we're supposed to do, technically. But they snack. My kids snack constantly. So I'm like,
Mhm.
it's lunchtime. They might not eat a very big lunch because they've snacked all day. And, they've had oranges or apples or whatever. Like, they just eat constantly.
Yeah, see, I think my kids honestly are learning my unhealthy eating habits. So, like, I don't know. I drink coffee in the morning and then I won't eat all day because I'm going and
Yeah.
I'm busy and I just don't really think about it. So I usually eat once a day and that's
Right.
dinner. And then I might have a snack like after dinner, depending on what we had for dinner. And so now I've watched my kids and I noticed that they don't eat much during the day until like 2 o'clock. My girls really don't eat. They'll have like water or, the older one drinks coffee sometimes. But I don't know. I'm not again, not mother of the year teaching, great eating habits, but they're still alive.
Well, and they're
They're
also teenagers,
thriving.
so they're going to do what
Yeah,
they're going to
yeah, they're
do.
gonna eat what they want, and in my defense, they probably have all kinds of snacks hoarded in their rooms, and I just don't see them eat it.
Yeah.
So,
They probably grab and go.
yeah, yeah, they're not grabbing an apple or an orange or anything like that, I
No.
can promise you, but I mean, some fruit snacks maybe is the closest.
Pop Tart. Those were my
Yeah,
big things. I used
yeah.
to I used to eat Pop Tarts when I was a teenager a lot.
Oh god. Oh, and what do you think 2023 what would you predict our industry looks like in 2023? I know you sent me an interesting article where a lot of people in our industry kind of gave their input on what they think is going to happen, but what do you think?
So, I in 2023, my words for this coming year are probably going to be reshift and refocus. Um, I think that we're going to have some very interesting things happen as far as how many new agents come in and how many agents leave. Um, I think that we're headed into a market that is harder than what we've
Mm.
had in the past. Not, I mean, 2022 is an anomaly, but
I think we're already in a harder market than what
oh,
we've had.
totally. And, sellers had their heyday. Um, I think the issue is um, people fear mongering people into thinking we're in some sort of apocalyptic time in the housing
Mhm.
industry when
The market's crashing. It's going to go through a huge crash in
yeah,
2023.
like we're gonna not have any houses to buy. And I find that to be very interesting. I mean, we saw many programs bust. We saw Zillow's iBuyer program bust.
Open door.
Open Doors is right, right
Mhm.
there. That's for a bust. I
It's like a
mean,
balloon that you just see swelling and you're like, "Okay, it's
right.
coming. It's
Yeah.
coming."
I mean, we've seen those, but I think buyers are hearing so many negative things. They're not hearing the positive things. And as much as I agree with the saying, date the rate, marry the house, in theory, I
Mhm.
agree. But I think what's hard for buyers is a lot of buyers that are coming back to the market got pre-qualified when their rates were a lot lower, and now they were qualified for a $400,000 house, and now they're at a 250 house,
Mhm.
and really they should be buying under that. I mean, you should never buy at the top of your budget. And I think that there's so much negativity going on and not enough education going on. And I'm not an economist by any means, but when you historically look at housing and the markets, I don't think that what's happening is vastly unusual historically.
No, I think that, like one of the articles said, it's kind of shifting into a nobody's market
Mhm.
because it's not really a seller's market and it's not fully a buyer's market either. It's just really kind of a balanced
Market.
market. And
There's
that
fair negotiation
freaks
room.
people out. And
Yeah.
sellers, they're at a point where they don't really know how to handle it yet because their expectations are still early 2022.
Mhm.
And buyers don't really know how to handle it because they keep hearing this doom and gloom. So they're like, okay, well, I'm going to really stick it to this seller and lowball or whatever. And I think people are just going to have to reshift their mindset
Mhm.
to what a normal market looks like.
Where there's
Um,
negotiation room on both sides.
right.
You're not priced at the top of the market.
Mm-hmm.
You're not buying at the top of the market. You're somewhere in the middle. And things
Right.
are going to sit on the market for longer, depending on your market. I mean, we saw that drastically in my area. We went from
Mm-hmm.
being on market for hours
Yeah.
to being on market for 30
Yeah.
plus days. And I've got clients asking me, like, what's happening? What's wrong? Why am I not getting a ton of showings? I'm like, because as
Mm-hmm.
much as I pulled a CMA for you and I said I only went 90 days back, 90 days ago was a different market than what we're in now.
Right.
And the holiday season, I don't think is a bad time to sell, although a lot of agents will disagree with that. I don't think it's a bad time to
I think
sell.
that's because they don't want to work.
I just think
They
it's a
don't want to
different.
work during that time of year, so it's easier for them to convince somebody to hold off till January when they feel like getting back into business.
Yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I feel like it's just buyers have to be made aware that the housing industry, I think in Florida and in Texas especially, the last time
Mhm.
Texas, when we actually did have the housing crash, Texas actually held its own. Like our market value here stayed pretty steady. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of the industry that's in Texas itself.
Mhm.
And Florida kind of held its own. So I would say housing values may fall, but I don't think that they're going to fall at the rate that the surrounding territories probably
Right,
will.
and I think that's one of my big frustrations too, is all of these news articles and things are on a national level,
Right.
and it freaks people out because when you look at a state by state level or even dialing it down, not even just whole state of Texas because some
Right.
areas in Texas are
Sure.
struggling, But this whole corridor from like Dallas down to San Antonio is a totally different market.
Right.
And so really freaking out because in Wisconsin things aren't moving as fast when you're still in one of the strongest markets is a little ridiculous.
Right.
I do think that one of the good things, the way I see it, is that the changes in the market to kind of be a nobody's market is really going to make agents have to level up.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know how to negotiate, if you don't know how to kind of work that contract and really use different parts of that contract for your client's advantage, you're going to get weeded out.
Well, and I
Because,
think that if you don't know how to
so many
communicate,
agents never had to negotiate because it
yeah,
just was what it was. The seller wants this, we need to go over that. We can't negotiate repairs, we can't negotiate anything. So now a lot of these agents who just got into business and haven't bothered taking any outside education, haven't really, I mean, they're coming up on renewal now, but they haven't done any investing in their
mm-mm,
education. It's going to be overwhelming for them because their incompetence is going to show.
right.
And, if they don't level up and come correct in 2023, they'll be gone.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is agents don't know how to communicate, like in general.
Mm-hmm.
Communicate and be the resource and educate and be able to say to a buyer, "Hey, your rate is this, but it, but your payment difference is only this." It's like, it's just like the conversation we've had previously where it's like you're willing to pay $50,000 and that was okay
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't appraise, but you're not okay with paying a 7% interest rate, which is literally equal, if not less, than that $50,000 over
Right.
price. Like that's the hard part. And it's, you can't look at people like, hey, you're an idiot. But sometimes I look
Mm-hmm.
at people and I'm like, but you do realize that doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I think it's that many agents don't know how to communicate to buyers what an actual market analysis looks like. Like,
Many agents don't know how to do an actual market analysis.
no, they just look at
You know,
Matrix and they pull,
the one sheet.
yeah.
Yeah.
They don't actually dive into what's going on
Mm-hmm.
or even call those agents because, we get a limited amount. Money agents don't even put anything, but we get a limited amount of space to put in any other remarks, like if the
Mm-hmm.
seller paid closing costs or if they paid for anything or whatever. And a lot of agents don't even put that in. So
No.
I will usually call and say, hey, was there anything other in that contract other than, that it was conventional
Did
at
they
full
do buy
price?
down? Did
Did
they do
Yeah, did
any
they
of that?
offer
Mm-hmm.
anything? Like, and just see where the trueness of those numbers really are. And although that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily play into appraisal, it plays into making a seller and a buyer understand that there is more negotiation room than there used to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they need that. I mean, and I do think the MLS is going to have to kind of expand that because, with the 2-1 buy downs happening and all these different things, we are getting inaccurate data.
Yeah.
And so the sellers are still like, oh, well, they sold for this much. Yeah, but what you don't see is the $15,000 they came out for buyer's closing costs.
Right.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I am kind of worried that some of the lenders are relaxing their guidelines a little bit going into 2023 and relaxing their underwriting requirements and kind of getting a little more lax. I'm hoping that it's within reason and
Sure.
doesn't go back to kind of a 2008
Yeah.
problem where people that really should not have been qualifying go ahead and get through because then that'll be a whole other problem in the next few years.
Right.
But, we'll see. Something will happen.
Yeah. I think I think we're in an interesting time. I think that people need to not read what fits their mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are that brainwave of apocalyptic times and, we're all going to crash and burn and die in the fiery depths of hell, then
That's my grandma right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
then you need to figure out and find the other side. You need to see the other side and see the
Mhm.
argument and come to, otherwise it's just confirmation bias. You're just confirming what you already believe and you're pushing
Mhm.
yourself further into a corner, whereas you're not getting a well-rounded idea of what's going on.
Well, and I think for sellers or buyers, if you really want to know what is going on around you, call a few different well-respected agents
Yeah.
who are producing and just ask, like, what are you seeing? What are your thoughts? Like, I don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but, or if I'm making a move, but I would just like to know. Most good agents will be willing to have that conversation with
Sure.
you without like some super obligation to, use them in the future if you decide. It's
Sure.
just an education thing. And if you call an agent and they're like, well, I don't really know, pick a different agent. Like any agent who is not paying close attention to what their market is doing right now should not be the agent that you are hiring. Like, I get we
Yeah.
can work all over the state of Texas, and I get that, NAR is relaxing guidelines on that, and the data exchange is about to happen to where we can have access to information all over, which in theory makes it easier for us to sell all over the state. We should not be doing that.
No, our competency is
It's
not there.
no. So that is a scarier thing to me too, that's going to start happening is all these agents from outside our area coming in and kind of like making a mess
Mhm.
with no real repercussions.
Yep.
And it's not just my area, of course it's yours.
It's
It's
everywhere.
everywhere because when people get desperate in a market like we're going into, agents, it's like they take any business
They can get.
they can get instead of referring out for a referral fee to somebody in that market, and then you don't have to do any of it.
Right.
And your client is better served because they got somebody who knows that market.
Yeah.
It's
I
just insane.
I went to a listing appointment recently and it was very interesting because they're military, so they're PCSing, and they've only owned their house for a small amount of time. They bought new construction, and the house in the neighborhood is still being built in.
Mhm.
Pretty common. Um, and so, when I ran my analysis, I took all those, new builds out of my analysis because they're not going to, even though they are comparable, they're not going to compare.
Mhm.
An appraiser won't. Um, and they told me that they had talked to another agent, and the agent told them that that they were going to be, they were going to come to the table with money, and that their house is completely unsellable, and they either needed to refinance because their rate was so high, or they needed to rent it out. And I was very quiet. I'm like, remember Article 15, remember Article 15.
Right.
And I'm like, I said, that's a very interesting point of view.
Always the diplomat. I love that. That DC,
Yeah.
DC in you, very diplomatic.
I said, that is a very interesting point of view. However, I do have a differing point of view. I sell quite often in neighborhoods that are being built in as well as resale. I said, I think that you have to be smarter when it comes to your comparables, but did that agent even ask you, when did you buy your house? What did you buy your house at, or what your rate was? And she said, well, no. And I said, well,
Then how would they know any
then
of that?
how would they know? They're just assuming because
Mhm.
that neighborhood is still having new houses being built, that your house immediately has zero value.
Mhm.
And even in a spec mega builder spec neighborhood, that's not necessarily the case because building times are not what they used to be. They're
Right.
8 months to a year out, and they're not the same turnarounds that they used to be. So I think it's interesting that agents have that mindset. And I'm like, probably need to ask more questions. I was like, because
Mhm.
they bought that. They're still going to walk out with 70 to 80K in equity because they bought it before all of the shitty
Mhm.
shit happened. So they bought it at like a 3.2 interest rate. I'm like, why would he tell you to refinance into a 7% interest rate? That's just the most stupid advice I've ever
Yeah. Yeah, and you just hear it a lot. I do see some people in some of those types of neighborhoods having a few issues if they bought within, like, a year,
Yeah,
and now that builder is offering buy downs.
right. It's hard to beat builder incentives.
So that is really difficult when you're trying to sell yours that somebody would have to finance at, you know, a higher rate versus them with their buy downs at 4.9.
Right.
So I can see how some of it's a problem, but everything about real estate should really be handled kind of case by case.
Right.
Like instead of applying like a blanket statement to any one house, you really have to look at every house, client, everything individually. And, I don't think people know how to do that.
Well, and buy downs right now are so much more expensive than they typically are.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's one of those things where it's like, it's jargon, right? So people hear, "Oh, you're buying down points." The general consumer has no freaking idea what buying down a point means.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't even know that a lot of people don't even realize that a point is a percent. They don't even
Right.
know that difference. Like they don't even understand.
And that most of the time, buying down points, like as a buyer to be asked to buy points down, unless you're staying in that house for a long time, it usually will not make sense for you to buy your points down.
Well, and right now it's like triple the cost to buy down your points. So you're
Mhm.
buying, so it used to be 1%. So, if you wanted to buy down, it'd be, a couple $1,000s. Okay. So it saves you $10 on
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
mortgage.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, but now to buy down points, it's like $3,000 to $5,000 per point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just ridiculous. And then you can get even to like the fractions of a point. You can buy down a fraction of a point. And you really, as a buyer, you really need to be asking your lender, what is the advantage of me buying down this point and how much am I truly saving on my mortgage if I stay at my beginning rate versus buying this down?
Well, and this is where I think buyers need to start shopping their mortgage lenders also.
Mhm.
If you're looking at buying a house, go talk to like 3 different lenders.
I will say though, before you even start talking to lenders,
Mm-hmm.
if you're even in the next year thinking about buying a house, because this is the market that we're headed into, you need to go, I think it's optout.com. I think it's optout.com. I'll verify that. But you put in all your information because especially when you go to Wells Fargo, Chase,
Oh, yeah.
Citibank,
Everybody will be calling you.
everybody calls you. And what's even more fascinating is when you're under contract, and I've had my past 2 deals have this happen, is they say all they say is that they're the processor for the loan and they're requesting information and it's so they can try and steal that loan. I've had lenders
Mhm.
call 2 of my last 2 deals. I had lenders calling the title company. How they found that out, I have no idea, requesting title. And the title company called me and was like, "Hey, they're requesting title." I'm like, "I don't even know who that is."
Oh
And
my
it's
goodness.
they're lenders from big cities, Austin, Dallas, San Antonio. Like they are calling and trying to steal loans. So to protect yourself, it's kind of like the DNC list.
Mm-hmm.
Opt out protects your information. So when you are getting a loan, your information doesn't get sold.
Right.
And it's all your information's out there once you start applying. So, it's one of those things where to protect yourself, you want to go on that
Well, and
website.
probably that wouldn't be a bad idea anyway,
True.
because I think if anybody's anything like me, you're getting like 20 million robocalls and
Yes.
solicitation calls a day anyway.
It's so bad. I got
Yeah.
one on the way here. It's that time of year where it's like, "Hey, it said something like greetings of the season to you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not available to talk right now, but
Yeah.
if you could text me, I need you to do me a favor." And it was from another agent in my office. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
no, like just no.
I had that go through my office.
Oh,
Somebody
it's
was texting
constant.
all of my agents,
Yes.
"Hey, it's Amber," and they used my full last
Yes.
name, which is the number one clue that it's never from me because
Right.
my last name's hyphenated, so I never use the first part professionally ever. Um, and so they're all calling me. I'm like, "Would I ever tell you my full first name and last name if I needed something?"
Yeah.
And
Also, it's
like
not my number.
and also, why would I need $500 gift cards from Walmart? Like,
I'm bougier than that. At least Target.
well, anybody that knows me knows I absolutely hate going to Walmart.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's
It
just not ever gonna happen that
it's and those
no.
scammers, my God.
It's well, and so 2 days before Christmas, my husband gets a call from my father-in-law, and he inherited a piece of property from his dad like 40 years ago. And he never goes by this property. It's in San Antonio and it's just kind of out of the way from his normal neck of the woods. And he's a builder and he's gotten kind of slow with his new build, so he was considering building a house on this vacant land that he owns. And so he goes by there and there are fresh surveying pins on the property and a for sale sign from an agent that's out of the valley. It was a CB agent out of the valley. And so he calls the number on the sign and she's like, "Yeah, the property is in escrow. It's already been surveyed. It's set to close on the 29th." And he's like, "What? That's my property." And she's like, "No, it's, so and so, and they're from California. And, I listed this property for him and it's in escrow and set to close." So, of course, gets me involved. And so I call her and I'm like, "Did you look up a county appraisal record at all
Yeah.
to see that these things checked out? Nothing?" Like, "No, I never look at appraisal district records."
Ever?
How do you list a property
How do
and
you
not verify who owns the property? And how at this title company
did they not catch
did
that?
it make it almost to closing without catching that you're not talking to the owner? And she's like, "Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. All of a sudden, he started saying that he needs to close at an embassy in Vietnam because he's going to be out of the country. So everything needs to be mail out and wired out." So what was going to happen if the proceeds from this lot were just wired out and supposedly sold
Yeah.
to these buyers? Like craziness. But I mean, how do you not do your due diligence when you list a property as an agent?
Oh, I would turn that agent in so
I
fast.
mean, it just boggles my mind. And then acting like I was inconveniencing her. And I'm like,
Screwing
"You're
her out of
about,"
a commission.
yeah. And I'm like, "You're about to have somebody close on a property."
You're about to have a massive lawsuit on your hands.
Oh, major. Because I mean, say he didn't go out there. He told us he hadn't driven by that property in over 5 years. Had he waited another, say, 2 years and driven by and there's a whole ass house on a property that he owns?
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine? And just the amount of scams like that that are going on. And I'm like, in theory, you would think that that would be a hard one to pull off. But with mobile notaries and everything else now, say you do have a fake ID in that name, would it really be that difficult to sign off on documents mobily in another country and have money wired? And we all know once money's wired, it's gone in like
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, title companies, I think, should have a little bit of responsibility in that too, because that's something that should have been caught.
Yeah, for sure. And it would have been caught early, you would think.
Yeah.
Especially with a new survey being done.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
the survey pulls all
yeah.
the records. Like, the
Mhm.
surveyor their job is way harder than people give it credit. I mean, the amount of studying and
Research, right.
research that goes into that, like, somebody somewhere caught that.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, if she couldn't ever, like, with those types of things, most of the time you don't talk to those people over the phone. So, like, that would be another thing. Like,
Right.
if you can't talk to those people on the phone, like, there's a pretty good chance
Right.
that you're probably talking to a scammer.
Yeah. It's just insane. And I would think also, she mentioned that it was a younger sounding gentleman. And I'm like, so had you gone and looked at property records, you would have seen that that man took title to that property like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So, say he's even 18 at that point. He's already not like a young man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it just boggles my mind. The lack of research and the lack of like verification. And I get we do a lot of business with people from out of state now, but I think that that requires you doing even more diligence to make sure that you're talking to who you think you're talking to.
Right. And it's just like what I was telling you when I I came in and I was on the phone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I have an RV park. It's a commercial RV park for sale. And guy said he was, I had my spidey senses up about this person anyway. But, he is, he said he was pre-qualified for, over $1 million to buy this RV park. And I'm like, great. And he wants to talk to the seller about day-to-day operations and some of the history of the park and the tenants and stuff like that. Makes total sense.
Mhm.
Fine. I said, I need proof of, I need a pre-approval letter. And then he said, he changed his mind with his buyer's agent and said, I'm going to do owner finance at 10% down. And I was like, no, friend, we
Yeah.
don't play that game. It's almost a $2 million property. We are not owner financing at 10%. You can't even get that on the third party market. And
Or in a lot of commercial loans.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I'm looking at, as like we do.
mhm.
I started stalking this guy and looking him up because that's what we do to kind of see.
Researching. You were
I was
researching this guy.
researching
You were not
this
stalking
gentleman.
him.
I was researching this gentleman, and he's come like his record squeaky clean. A lot of what he says checks out. I'm not saying that what he's saying it doesn't check out, but his company that he has started is very new, like
Mhm.
10 months new. So I don't know if he would ever qualify for a loan at this point because he probably doesn't have the capital to. But I basically came back and I was like, because I said last night to another agent, I said, I don't have a good feeling about this. I was like,
Mhm.
something seems amiss. And it's like, you have to trust your gut. And so, he wanted to come back at 10%. And I was like, no, these are your terms. It's going to be 40%. It's
Mhm.
going to be on a 5-year balloon and interest rate starts at 12. And I mean, that's a huge risk for a seller to take is an owner financing deal, especially at that price point.
Well, and on a property that is producing income.
Correct.
Like,
It's-
there has to be an agreement or a division of that income
Oh, totally.
also.
It's just a nightmare. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be a part of that deal.
No, you're like, I can feel the lawsuit coming.
Yeah, I'm
and
like, I can smell it.
don't love that journey for me.
No.
So I'm going to
No.
pass.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I'm
but I'll
gonna-
move on from this.
Yeah, there's other buyers. Like,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
Especially for an RV park. Those are like a hot commodity at the
Ex-
moment.
yeah, and I love his vision for the property and everything. Like, that's great. But, like, at the end of the day, if you don't have the money, friend, you don't have the money. And I
Yeah.
need you to prove your liquidity. Like, and she's like, well, he's a good old boy. And I
Oh, liquidity. That's such a fun one.
she said, well, he's just a good old boy. And I was like, yeah, and I'm not.
Mm-mm.
I said, this is a business transaction. He wants to buy a business. This is more businessy than buying a 1-to-4.
Mhm.
I said, so this is business. I don't care that he wants to rub elbows with the seller. I have zero care about that. What I care
Mhm.
about is he good for the money, yes or no? Because if it's not, all I'm doing is screwing my seller over. And it's a waste of my time. It's a waste of that buyer's agent's time. It's a waste of everybody's time. And time is money. So I was like, she goes, oh, so are those owner financing, is that negotiable? And I was like, no, ma'am.
Yeah.
No, ma'am. That's not negotiable. I said, and I can tell you if he wants to continue to waste her time, those will change and it'll be 50% and we'll
Right.
just keep going up. I
They're
said,
like, yeah, it's not negotiable in your direction, but it is in ours.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're
you
on a
know,
time limit. So either make
this
it
is
happen
like
or
Shark
walk away.
Tank.
Yeah.
The offer gets worse the longer you're holding on it. Yeah. I'm about to turn Mr. Wonderful on you real fast. So,
100%.
figure it out or get out from
Yeah.
my space.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'll be that asshole Mark Cuban who is very smart, but like he turns
See, I
asshole
think
real
he's
quick.
the nicer one.
But when he sees a deal that's stupid,
Yeah.
he is like, he doesn't even want them standing in front of him. Like, he
Yeah,
just
I feel
shuts
like he
down.
just shuts down,
Yeah,
but the other one
totally.
makes it his mission to,
M
like, be a jackass.
Yeah, Mr. Wonderful makes it his mission to, like, belittle somebody to, like,
Yeah.
the point of no return.
But then again, they're the ones that passed on Ring doorbells, so
Also true.
and Mr. Wonderful is now embroiled in that whole FTX scandal thing. So, you know,
You
I'm
win
just
some, you lose
saying
some. You
that
win some, you
maybe
lose some.
his insight isn't always the best.
No.
So
No.
nobody ever is perfect, but yeah.
No, but I do I mean, I like Shark Tank as a general, like, show just to binge watch on, but I do ever since, you know, some of the later shows, I've definitely started following some of those sharks a
Mhm.
little bit closer, and I do really like listening to Mark Cuban.
I do too.
I
He's
r
one of my favorites. There's some
Yes.
that I can't stand.
I
I
used to
really
not
like
like him
him.
very much. Like, on the show in the beginning, he was such a came off as such a, like, a cocky douchebag, and I just couldn't I was like, "Ugh," like, you make me like, I
Yeah.
can feel the bile in my throat, but, like, you know, he kinda leveled out, and, like,
Mhm.
so much of the advice that he gives, even to those people, like, he's so encouraging, like, when they're, like, this close, but they're not quite there. But I really, really enjoy listening to him and now,
Yeah.
not maybe not so much in the beginning, but I do really like listening to him now and listening to his business advice and stuff like that. I think that he is I mean, he's obviously very, very sharp.
Mhm.
Not that
One
the
that
rest of them
I
aren't.
am kind of disappointed, and you know that I've always liked her stuff before, is Bethany.
Mhm.
And I've seen her on Shark Tank, and that's cool. Um, but I don't know what she's thinking now. Like, she is so successful in business. And then it's like she got on TikTok and just started putting her foot down her throat on a bunch of different things. And then is now going back to the housewives thing, like on her own podcast. And I'm like, you've moved so far past that and built like a respectable like empire.
Mhm.
Why take yourself down to that drama nonsense? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, and
I think
especially after, you know, the book that both you and I read, like,
right.
how she talks about the housewives and how
Yeah.
and how she never really felt like she was in, like,
So
on that.
why step back into like a drama, what my coach Larry calls a drama triangle? Like,
Yeah.
why inject yourself back into that? Like, you've gone on and done so many bigger things. Like, why step back into that quicksand?
I
I
don't know.
just don't understand it. Like,
I don't
I
know.
just, I lost some respect for her a little
Yeah.
bit in the last few months over some things on TikTok, and then that for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I appreciated her book, Business is Personal.
Yeah, I loved that.
I loved that book. I appreciated a lot of what she had to say. I felt to the core a lot of what she had to say. And I do agree that at some point I feel like she's maybe losing her authentic self, maybe thought that she was losing
I think
something.
she's chasing relevance. And instead
Maybe.
of just being happy being relevant in the business world, it's like she, I think, has gotten kind of re-addicted to having her face on camera
Yeah.
and like being seen,
Potentially, yeah.
you know? And I'm like, I respected you so much more when you were kind of like not chasing it and being like the, what is it? My kids call it like the pick me girl,
Yeah.
you know? And now I'm like, man, you're just after the fame like everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, for a while I just thought, you know, she was smart because she used it as a vehicle
Right.
to get to where she ultimately wanted to go in business. And
Right.
now it's like realizing, no, it wasn't just a vehicle. You really are like addicted to that also.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just my 2 cents.
It's just very interesting. It's interesting because the other thing about her that, and maybe this is a lot of business people, but this is just not, and maybe I just don't ever need to get to that level of being like that bajillionaire type of mentality.
Mhm.
But everything was monetized. I mean,
Everything
everything.
is monetized. Yeah.
And for me, it's like, you know, that you lose like that. And we've talked about this before. Like, you lose your sense of humanity. Like, you're
Mhm.
not a human, you're a product at that point. You're selling yourself
Well,
constantly.
and if I know that the only things you will ever recommend are things that put money in your own pocket,
I'm not
am I
interested.
ever gonna trust what you're recommending? No, probably not, because I don't feel like it's a real recommendation. And it's the same like for us in business, I don't allow our agents to do kickbacks from security
Mhm.
companies or, different vendors that are constantly trying to get us to recommend them for work. Like, no,
Yeah,
because if I'm recommending somebody, I want people to know that it's because I truly believe in them, not because I make anything financially off of them.
right.
And that's where I think some of like the influencer things are getting kind of crazy, like Kim Kardashian and her weight loss lollipops. Like, be for real now. Like, really?
Yeah.
It just,
I've never bought a product because I'm like, wow, Jennifer Aniston loves Neutrogena. She just must think it's the bee's knees. Like, I bought it because it was on sale. It had a coupon. It looked like a great facial cleanser. Like,
mhm,
I didn't buy it because a celebrity said, man, this is a great product. Like, we know they're monetized for that. Like,
mhm,
yeah, maybe on the off chance they did use it. But I don't, for me, and it's great marketing. I'm not saying it's not,
mhm.
but
You
I,
know damn well that somebody that's got the pocket size of Jennifer Aniston is not using like $10 moisturizer. I mean, let's
it's
be real.
fresh out of
Like,
France.
I
That's
mean,
probably what they're
don't
using.
act like we are freaking idiots. Like, oh, you just spent $15,000 on a new eye lift, so now you're going to use an $8 eye cream?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like, nobody believes that shit. Like,
I mean,
it just is crazy to me.
I mean, I guess for me, maybe, and again, maybe I don't have the bajillionaire mindset, but I don't feel the need to monetize every action that I do, and nor do
No.
would I ever be in that mindset. Like, say our podcast, I mean, God willing, right? Like, so say our podcast got really, really big and another podcaster asked us to be on their podcast and to share ideas. I would never say, great, for how much?
Yeah, what am I gonna get out of
Like,
it?
that
Like,
would just not like
payday, yeah,
it
no.
for me, it's community over like competition at that
Mhm,
point. I don't feel that we have to constantly be monetizing or being competitors. There's so much in this world that's materialistic
mhm.
that I think it's unhealthy to be in that mindset.
Yeah, and
And
it just feels skeezy. I'm
yeah,
sorry, it just does. Like,
not
I just
not down with it.
no, no, we're same girl, same.
I,
It's not gonna happen. Like, that will be an instant way for me to lose respect for, like, anybody.
yeah,
I
it's
just am not that girl.
no, it's just very interesting to me. And, I think that that could be something that comes with our new market. I think that agents will start doing things that'll be very interesting. Like we talked about, like everybody's going to become a coach. And so they're going to start monetizing
Mhm.
themselves. And I think that's going to be very interesting to say the least. And I think that we see that some of the time on Instagram and
Well, I think that we should probably save a little bit of that conversation for the next episode, just because we did ruffle a few feathers on Instagram with our coaching mentoring episode, and so we'll save that one for the next one because
we'll dive
that
deep
was a fun
into
11 p.m. conversation.
we'll dive deep into the next one.
Yeah, I mean, never opposed to ruffling some feathers, but didn't know that would be the topic. Yeah.
I mean, that there was someone that called me afterwards and they're like, "Wow, you guys like full on dropped the F-bomb and everything on that one." And I was like,
Well, we didn't. I think you
"I
did.
did.
So
I
I was the
did.
innocent good one on that episode,
I
and I
was.
just want the
It
record
was
to reflect that.
the record did reflect that. I was like, well, first of all, don't come to our podcast if the F word makes you uncomfortable
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
gonna happen. But secondly, I was like, I'm so passionate about people getting, just taken for, a run for their money kind of thing that I just
Mhm.
find it to be, I just want everybody to be really, really clear on what those actual
Yeah.
differentiating points are.
Well, I don't think they are yet.